Hey, what's up guys? Welcome again to Icebrand TV, and we're back with another video. And today, we're gonna do some old review of a character that I haven't been using lately. What I'm talking is Tartalja. Well, I do have some videos about weapon comparison and artifacts, but I didn't have contents talking about him intensively. So, in this video, we're gonna show you how broken this character is. Well, in fact, Childe is one of the best DPS character in the game. Even with the recent updates, Tartaglia could still keep up with the other newly released OP characters. But before we begin, I would like to thank everyone for the continued support to our growing community, and I really appreciate it guys. And also for reaching our 300 subscriber milestone this month, which I didn't actually expect, and that was absolutely great. And finally, you guys out there are wonderful, and always be safe. So without further ado, let's roll the intro. So first things first, here is my level 90 Tartalja. As you can see here, he has a max HP of 21k and a base attack of 1.9k. And over here, you can see that he has a decent crit rate to crit damage ratio. And the reason why my Tartalja has a good number of crit rate is that I'm currently using a crit rate circlet. Well, we're gonna talk about it on the artifact section later. Anyways, in addition, I do have a nice amount of numbers for my energy recharge. Well, you do also have to consider building him with a little energy recharge, as his ultimate or elemental burst, whichever you prefer to call it, is absolutely insane, and you want to actually use it more often. Obviously, Tartalja is a 5-star Hydro character, and whenever you ascend him, he will get an additional Hydro damage bonus, and that makes sense, cause both of his elemental skills and burst scale on Hydro damage. So now, let's talk about Tartalja's weapon of choice. Actually, there are plenty of choices out there, but of course, not everyone has all the options, provided that some of the weapons in the game are difficult to obtain. Well, in most part, I would suggest to choose between the Viridescent Hunt, which is one of the Battle Pass weapon, and if you're lucky enough to pull a Rust Bow, which is also a 4-star bow weapon, then choose whichever suits your game style. Well, both bow have their own pros and cons, so you better do your research first. Actually, you can also use the Stringless, which gives you an additional elemental mastery for its secondary attributes, as well as it increases both of your elemental skill and burst. Not bad, especially if your game style is more on activating your ultimate more often. And finally, I think in my opinion, the Skyward Harp is by far the best weapon for Childe. Aside from being a 5-star weapon, which has the highest attack scaling in the game, it has also a nice secondary attribute, which is crit rate, as well as it would give you an additional 20% crit damage at refinement level 1. Actually, 2 months ago, I did a comparison video between the Rust R5 and the Skyward Harp, and the results were very interesting. Well, of course, it would always depend on the artifacts you're using, and as always, you should take every information with a grain of salt. So speaking of artifacts, well, it's pretty obvious that the 4-piece Heart of Depth artifacts were designed and exclusively made for Childe. The 2-piece set gives you an additional 15% Hydro damage bonus, which is very nice. And the 4-piece set gives you a 30% increase on normal and charge attack for 15 seconds, that is after using an elemental skill, which is pretty damn good. So therefore, it is by far the best artifact set for Tartalja. In addition, if you're planning to farm these artifacts, you better save for the best substat. Well, of course, I would recommend crit rate and crit damage and a little energy recharge as well as a nice hydro damage goblet, and that would do the trick. And basically, if you're using the Skyward Harp or any weapon that gives you crit rate as the main attribute, then I would highly suggest to look for a crit damage circlet, because definitely that would balance your crit rate to crit damage ratio. Alternatively, you can use the 2-piece Heart of Depth with the 2-piece Noblesse Oblige or 2-piece Gladiator Finale. As far as I could remember, I had been using the 2-piece Wanderer's Troop and 2-piece Noblesse Oblige before the release of the version 1.2, and for me, it did very well for my Tartalgia. So let's move on to his constellations. Well, to be honest, a 0 constellation child is absolutely amazing. It has everything you need. And I've seen a lot of videos on the internet comparing a 0 constellation to C6 child, and yeah, there are several advantages of having a C6 child, but in order for you to achieve that, you need to be a whale. Literally, you're gonna spend a lot of real money here, and I wouldn't recommend it doing. Well, I better spend the money for something else like food, groceries, or gadget. Well, basically that's based on my own opinion in this matter. Now let's talk about child talents. Well, what I really love about him is his passive called Master of Weaponry. This is a very unique passive in which it increases all your party members' normal attack level by 1, including himself. As you can see here, all their normal attack level is increased up to 1, which is really nice. On the other hand, his normal attack perform up to 6 consecutive shots with a bow. In addition, performing a fully charged aim shot will apply the Riptide status to the enemy, and opponents affected by Riptide will suffer from AoE hydro damage effect in various ways. Well, here you can see enemies affected by Riptide, and they have a unique marking to their body that signifies that they are inflicted by the Riptide status. Actually, we have 2 forms of Riptide, the Riptide Flash and the Riptide Burst. Well, I'm not gonna explain this further, but basically, the Riptide Flash comes from a fully charged aim shot that hits an enemy already affected by Riptide and deals consecutive bout of AoE damage, whereas the Riptide Burst is after defeating an enemy affected by Riptide, thus creating an AoE hydro damage that inflicts the Riptide status on nearby opponents. Well, Child Elemental skills, also known as the Fall Legacy Raging Tide, allows him to use a melee stance and convert his normal and charge attack to hydro damage. That is why it is imperative and a no-brainer for anyone to build him with a hydro damage artifacts. In addition, when you already unlock his 4th accession passive, the Swords of Torrents, it will allow you to apply Riptide status to your opponents when dealing crit hit, which helps him to properly execute his Riptide combos. So basically, an instant Riptide status to your enemies just by hitting a crit hit. The problem with Child's elemental skill is the cooldown. The longer Tartalgia stays in his melee stance, the longer the cooldown of his elemental skill. But if you manage to return to the range stance before it resets the cooldown, it will be less longer than reaching the 30 seconds limit. Finally, let's talk about his ultimate or his elemental burst, the Havoc Obliteration. Surprisingly, it has 2 forms, the range and a melee stance. Both of them deals massive amount of hydro damage, so it explains here why some player can deal up to 500k hydro damage. Well, obviously, the percentage damage are really insane, and just by using the right party members, it could instantly erase an enemy just by 1 hit. And for me, this makes him super OP. So when it comes to team composition, I think there are plenty of characters that you can use with Child. Since he is a 5-star DPS Hydro user, it could be easy for him to match with various types of element like Pyro, Electro, and Cryo. But personally, I prefer matching him with a Pyro support character like Bennett, thus enhancing his elemental burst, or vice versa, you can use Diona or Kiki for continuous cryo effect, freezing enemies hit by Child. And Zhongli, on the other hand, could also offers an impenetrable shield which makes Childe indestructible during combat. Finally, it's all up to you. And these are only my recommendation based on my personal preferences. So I would highly suggest that you try experimenting Tartaglia with other characters. And just try to enjoy the game. There's nothing good or bad here, and it's all about personal enjoyment. So hope you liked the video guys, and thank you for watching.